Subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts. The soft murmur of the room was barely audible over the sound of Maria's heartbeat, racing faster with each passing moment. She stood in the middle of a lavish ballroom, a sea of glittering chandeliers overhead and expensive suits surrounding her. But despite the wealth and grandeur, Maria felt utterly out of place. Her worn shoes clicked softly against the polished marble floor, a stark contrast to the polished elegance of the guests. She was used to the stares, the whispers, the looks of disdain that followed her everywhere in this world that didn't belong to her. Yet today, something felt different. The air was thick with something more than just superficial pleasantries. Maria's eyes scanned the crowd, a mix of nervousness and determination coursing through her. The dress she wore was supposed to be her ticket, a gift for her mother's birthday, something she could never afford. But after hours of working overtime and scraping together what little savings she had bought it, promising herself that the sacrifice would be worth it. It was a simple gown, nothing extraordinary. White with delicate lace that shimmered in the light, it made her feel for once like she belonged to the world she had always dreamed of. It was perfect, at least it was supposed to be. But as she moved through the crowd, she couldn't shake the feeling that the evening was spiraling out of control. Her fingers tightened around the delicate fabric of her dress, suddenly feeling the weight of it like never before. It was as though it wasn't just a piece of clothing. It was something far more important, something she hadn't understood until this very moment. That's when she saw him, Alex Montgomery. He stood at the far side of the room, talking to a group of high-profile businessmen and women. His broad shoulders and sharp jawline made him stand out even among the well-dressed elite. But it wasn't his appearance that caught Maria's attention. It was the air of power and authority that clung to him like a second skin. He was the CEO of Montgomery Enterprises, a conglomerate worth billions, and rumors of his ruthlessness and ambition preceded him everywhere he went. Yet it was not his wealth that made her stomach twist in anxiety. It was the way his eyes locked with hers, as though he had known her forever. He wasn't looking at her like everyone else had, like she was invisible. No, his gaze held something deeper, something far more unsettling. For a moment, time seemed to stretch, as though everything else in the room faded away. Maria's heart skipped a beat, and before she could even blink, he was walking towards her. His eyes never left hers, and she felt a cold shiver run down her spine. The crowd parted in front of him, as if they instinctively knew to give him space, and Maria was left standing, frozen in place. The music played on, but all she could hear was the sound of his footsteps drawing nearer. "I need that dress." His voice was low, but the command in it was undeniable. Maria blinked, momentarily disoriented by his sudden appearance. She glanced down at the gown she wore, unsure if she had heard him correctly. "Excuse me? I need that dress. Now." There it was again, the undeniable force behind his words. It was not a request, it was a demand. Maria's chest tightened, a knot forming in her stomach. She was used to the world looking down on her. After all, she had spent her entire life trying to fit in places where she clearly didn't belong. But this was different. It was as if everything she had worked for, everything she had sacrificed to be here, was suddenly insignificant. Maria's lips parted, but no words came out. She wasn't sure if she was afraid or angry or both. This dress, was everything to her. It was more than just an article of clothing. It was a symbol of her struggle, her dreams. The last thing she wanted was to hand it over to a man like him, someone who had everything he could ever need and yet still sought to take from others. "Why do you want it?" Her voice trembled, though she tried her best to sound confident. Alex's gaze softened for just a moment, a flicker, of something unreadable crossing his features. Then, without missing a beat, he said, "It's not about the dress, it's about what it represents. I want it because you have it." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Maria's mind raced, struggling to make sense of the situation. She didn't understand. Why her? Why this dress? It was nothing special, nothing more than a simple creation meant for a celebration. But the way he looked at her, the way he made her feel in that instant, made her question everything. She was just a girl, no one special, no one worth obsessing over. Was it really just the dress, or was there something else at play? "I can't," she whispered, shaking her head. "I don't even know you." Alex didn't flinch. His eyes remained fixed on her, his expression unchanging. "You will." The words were like a promise, and it scared her more than anything else he could have said. For a brief moment, Maria felt a wave of dizziness pass over her. The room spun, the noise of the people blurring together as she tried to process what was happening. But before she could collect her thoughts, Alex reached forward, gently brushing a lock of hair from her face. The touch was soft, almost too gentle for someone with so much power. "You'll understand soon enough," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Maria stumbled back, her mind in turmoil. Something in him, something in the way he spoke, sent a chill through her. She had no idea what he meant or what he saw in her, but she knew one thing for sure. She was no longer in control of this situation. Alex straightened, turning on his heel to walk away, his presence still lingering in the air like a shadow. But before he disappeared into the crowd, he looked back over his shoulder, locking eyes with Maria one last time. And in that moment, Maria felt a surge of unease, an undeniable feeling that this was just the beginning. Her life, everything she had ever known, was about to change in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. She couldn't have known then, but Alex Montgomery's obsession with the dress was only the start of something far darker, far more dangerous. The night wore on, but Maria couldn't shake the feeling that she was trapped in a story she hadn't chosen to be a part of. As the music played and the people danced, her mind kept replaying the encounter, the haunting look in Alex's eyes, and the chilling certainty that nothing would ever be the same again. Maria couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. For the rest of the night, she wandered the ballroom, her mind a blur. The lavish decorations, the sparkling crystal glasses, the laughter of the guests, it all felt like a distant echo. She couldn't focus on anything. She couldn't forget the way Alex Montgomery's words had sent a shiver through her spine. "You'll understand soon enough." What did he mean by that? Why would a man like him, a millionaire CEO, a man who owned almost everything in the world, be interested in her dress? Why would he care so much about something that, in the grand scheme of things, meant so little to him? She tried to brush it off. Maybe he's just eccentric. Maybe he's just bored, she thought. But no matter how much she tried to rationalize the situation, something about it didn't sit right with her. His eyes, the intensity with which he looked at her. He wasn't just interested in the dress. He wanted her to be a part of something far greater than herself. The thought made her uneasy. By the time the night drew to a close, Maria felt physically drained, her body almost as if it had been through some kind of emotional storm. She had managed to avoid Alex the rest of the evening, but his presence seemed to follow her, lingering like a shadow. She left the ballroom, her heels clicking loudly in the empty hallways as she made her way to the front door. The fresh night air greeted her, a brief moment of solace in an otherwise tumultuous evening. But just as she was about to step out of the building, a voice behind her made her freeze. "Maria." She turned around slowly, her stomach sinking as her eyes met the man who had haunted her thoughts all night. Alex Montgomery stood in the doorway, his tall frame casting a long shadow in the dim light of the entrance. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes, something that made her heart skip a beat. "I need to speak with you," he said, his voice low and deliberate. Maria hesitated for a moment, the cool air brushing against her skin. She had every reason to run, to get away from him, but something kept her rooted in place. She didn't understand why, but there was an undeniable pull between them, something that made her feel both frightened and intrigued at the same time. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice quieter than she intended. Alex took a step closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "You've been avoiding me all night, but I'm afraid we can't avoid this conversation any longer." Maria's heart thudded painfully in her chest. "I don't know what you want from me, Mr. Montgomery, but I can't give you what you're asking for. The dress, it's mine. I didn't come for the dress." He cut her off, his words so sudden that they sent a ripple of confusion through her. "I came for you." Her breath caught in her throat. "Me?" "Yes. You." Maria took a step back, her hand instinctively reaching for the doorframe as if she could somehow use it to steady herself. This was not what she had expected, not at all. Alex's eyes softened just a fraction, but there was still that dangerous edge to them. "I know this sounds insane. I know you don't understand, but I promise you, Maria, this is bigger than you and me. It's bigger than the dress. It's about something that has been out of my reach for so long, and I think you have it." She shook her head, trying to make sense of his words. "I don't know what you're talking about." Alex's expression darkened, the mask of control slipping for just a moment. "There's something special about you, Maria. I can't explain it, but I've seen it before. I've spent years trying to understand it, trying to find the answer. And I think you hold the key." Maria's head was spinning. "I'm just a girl who bought a dress, Mr. Montgomery, nothing more." "Don't sell yourself short," Alex said, his voice soft, yet filled with something far more intense. "That dress is a symbol of something much larger. I need to understand what it is, Maria. I need to know how you fit into this puzzle." His words were like riddles, and she felt herself sinking deeper into a mystery she hadn't signed up for. There was no denying the allure of his presence, but there was also an overwhelming sense of danger that clung to him. She had always been the kind of person who avoided trouble, who kept her distance from people who might cause problems in her life. But Alex was different. There was no escaping him. "I don't have any answers for you," she said, though her voice trembled, despite her best efforts. "I don't know what you want from me." Alex took another step forward, his gaze never wavering. "I'm not asking for your answers. I'm asking for your help." The words echoed in Maria's mind long after they were spoken. Help? What? A kind of help could she possibly offer someone like him? She had nothing to give, nothing of value to offer to a man who could have anything he wanted in the world. "I'm not part of your world," Maria said, her voice growing stronger as she found her footing. "I'm just a girl who works hard to survive. I don't have anything to offer you." Alex's gaze softened, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his features. "You're wrong, Maria. You're part of this, whether you want to be or not." The words hung in the air between them like an unspoken truth. Maria felt her pulse quicken, her mind racing to make sense of what was happening. This wasn't just about a dress. This wasn't just about a rich man asking for something he couldn't have. There was something far deeper at play, something that Maria had yet to fully understand. Before she could respond, Alex reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a business card. He held it out to her, his fingers brushing hers as she took it. "Call me when you're ready to understand, when you're ready to see the bigger picture." Maria looked down at the card in her hand. Montgomery Enterprises. The name was bold and stark against the white background. She felt a strange sense of foreboding wash over her. "I don't know what this is all about," she said, her voice almost a whisper, "but I'm not part of your game, Mr. Montgomery. I'm not your puppet." Alex's lips curled into a faint, enigmatic smile. "No, Maria, you're not a puppet. You're a player in a game far more complex than you can imagine." With that, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. Maria stood there, her heart pounding in her chest, unsure of what to do. Her fingers tightened around the business card in her hand. Her mind raced with questions, doubts, and a creeping sense of dread. This was just the beginning, she knew. Her life, her world, was about to change in ways she couldn't even fathom. The night grew darker. Maria looked up at the sky, the stars shining down on her like silent witnesses to the events unfolding. What had she just become a part of? What did Alex Montgomery want from her, and why did he believe she held the key to something bigger? She didn't know yet, but she was about to find out. Maria couldn't sleep that night. The weight of Alex Montgomery's words echoed in her mind long after he had left her standing in the cool night air. The card in her hand was a reminder of everything she was not prepared for. "You're part of this, whether you want to be or not." Those words replayed in her head like a haunting melody. What did Alex mean? What was he really after? And why her? She tossed and turned in bed, her mind racing with questions but no answers. All she could do was replay the night, each moment frozen in her mind like a still image. His gaze had been unrelenting. He hadn't looked at her like a stranger, like someone who didn't matter. He had looked at her like she was the key to something that only he could understand. By morning, she was exhausted, but she couldn't ignore the truth that was beginning to take root. She couldn't walk away. She had tried to forget what happened and move on with her life, but Alex's presence lingered in every corner of her thoughts. She knew she had to confront whatever it was that had entangled her. In his world, the morning light streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over the small apartment that Maria called home. She stood in front of her mirror, looking at herself as if seeing a stranger. She had never felt more alone, more disconnected from everything she had worked so hard to build. Her reflection, a girl who once believed she could remain invisible in a world of wealth and privilege, now seemed like a pawn in someone else's game. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from an unknown number. "I trust you've had time to think. Call me when you're ready to take the next step. Alex." Her heart raced as she stared at the screen. She knew deep down that she couldn't ignore him. Not anymore. But something inside her pushed back. She wasn't ready. She wasn't prepared to dive into whatever dark world Alex had dragged her into. She could feel it in the pit of her stomach, a sense of foreboding, like the calm before a storm. But the pull was too strong. The mystery was too consuming. She found herself dialing his number before she could talk herself out of it. The phone rang twice before Alex picked up. "Maria." His voice was smooth, almost like a whisper. "I'm glad you called." She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "I don't know what this is, Alex, but I need answers. I can't keep doing this. I don't understand why you need me, why my dress." Alex's tone shifted, softening just a fraction. "It's not just about the dress, Maria. It's about what it represents. What you represent." Her mind raced. "What do you mean? I'm just a girl who works hard to get by. I'm nothing special." "You're more special than you realize," he said, his voice holding an edge of finality. "Meet me. I'll explain." "Everything." Maria hesitated. Every part of her told her to walk away, to block his number, delete the card, and forget this ever happened. But the truth was, she couldn't. She had never felt more alive, more driven by curiosity, by the need to understand what was happening. Something inside her told her that this was the moment that would define everything to come. "Where?" she asked, the word slipping out before she could stop it. A soft chuckle came through the phone. "I'll send you the address." "Don't be late." The line went dead before Maria could say anything else. She stood there, staring at the screen, unsure of what she had just agreed to. A part of her wanted to cancel, to forget everything that had happened, but she knew that was impossible now. She had stepped into something far bigger than herself, and there was no turning back. An hour later, she was standing outside a sleek, black building in the heart of the city. The address Alex had sent her was for a private office, tucked away from the prying eyes of the world. She looked up at the glass doors, her heart pounding in her chest. This was it, the moment she would either walk away from this mess or be pulled deeper into it. She pushed open the door and stepped inside. The lobby was as pristine as everything else about Alex Montgomery. Polished marble floors, modern art hanging on the walls, and a receptionist who looked at her with a polite smile, though there was no warmth in it. Maria approached the desk, her palms sweating. "I'm here to see Mr. Montgomery," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The receptionist's eyes flickered to the computer screen in front of her before nodding. "Right this way." She led Maria down a long hallway, past glass offices that were empty, save for a few assistants typing away at their desks. Everything felt sterile, like a place where people came to work but never lived. The walls were painted in neutral tones, the furniture sleek and minimal. It felt cold. At the end of the hall, the receptionist stopped in front of a large wooden door. "Mr. Montgomery will see you now," Maria nodded, her throat dry. She felt like she was walking into the unknown, like she was about to meet someone who would change her life forever. She took a deep breath and pushed the door open. Alex was standing by the window, his back to her. He turned as she entered, his eyes meeting hers with that same intensity that had unsettled her the night before. "You came," he said, his voice low, almost surprised. Maria nodded, unable to find her words. She didn't know what she was expecting, but this wasn't it. Alex didn't look like a man who was about to explain the mysteries of the universe to her. He looked like a man who had seen too much, been through too much, and had his own share of secrets buried deep within. He motioned for her to sit. "Please take a seat." She slowly made her way to the chair opposite him, her eyes scanning the room. The office was luxurious but minimalist, the furniture carefully chosen for its sleekness and comfort. There were no personal touches, no photographs, no plants, just a collection of books and a few pieces of modern art that didn't seem to have any real meaning. Alex sat down across from her, his posture relaxed, but his eyes never leaving hers. There was something about the way he looked at her that made her feel like she was under a microscope. "Maria," he began, his voice steady, "what if I told you that everything you've ever believed about yourself, about your life, was wrong? What if I told you that the dress you bought, the one you thought was nothing more than a simple piece of clothing, holds the key to something far greater than anything you could have imagined?" Maria felt a chill crawl up her spine. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about a secret," Alex continued, leaning forward slightly. "A secret that's been buried for generations. A secret that involves you, your family, and this dress." Her head spun as he spoke. "My family? What does my family have to do with this?" "You're a part of something, Maria. Something you've never been told, and it's time for you to understand what that is." She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. The confusion, the fear, the curiosity, everything she felt swirled together, making it impossible to think clearly. What was he saying? What was he trying to tell her? Alex leaned back in his chair, watching her with a calmness that only added to the storm inside her. "This isn't about the dress, Maria. It's about the legacy you carry. It's about the power that flows through your bloodline." Her mind raced, but nothing he said made sense. "What power? I don't come from anything special. My family has always been poor. My mother worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table." Alex's expression softened, but there was still that intensity in his eyes. "Your family's history is much older, Maria. Much older than you know." Maria swallowed hard, trying to piece everything together. She was missing something, something important. Alex smiled faintly, as if he could read her thoughts. I know this is a lot to take in, but trust me, Maria, this is just the beginning. Maria sat in the chair, unable to move. Alex's words echoed in her mind, each one like a hammer striking against her thoughts, shattering what little sense of security she had left. The legacy you carry, the power that flows through your bloodline. She had always been ordinary, always lived a simple life, working hard to make ends meet, keeping her head down and doing her best to stay out of the spotlight. The idea that her family, that she herself, could be connected to something so vast, so powerful, was inconceivable. Her father had been a mechanic, her mother a waitress, people who struggled every day to survive, never hinting at any sort of wealth or power beyond their reach. Yet here she was, sitting across from Alex Montgomery, a man who spoke of secrets older than her family, of power buried deep in her bloodline. The world she thought she knew was unraveling, and she wasn't sure how much more of it she could handle. Alex studied her, his eyes dark and unwavering, as if he could see every thought running through her mind. I know this is overwhelming, but you need to understand that this isn't something you can just walk away from, Maria. It's in your blood. I don't understand. Maria's voice was shaky, a mixture of frustration and confusion. What are you talking about? My family is nothing special. We don't have any secrets, any power, nothing. Alex's lips tightened, and he leaned forward, his fingers lightly tapping on the desk. The bloodline you come from is ancient, Maria. It's intertwined with something bigger than both of us. And that dress, the one you bought, it's a symbol of that legacy. You don't just own it, it owns you. Maria recoiled, her stomach twisting into knots. The idea of being connected to something so much larger, something so dark, terrified her. I don't believe you, she whispered, more to herself than to him. I understand why you'd be skeptical, Alex continued, his tone steady but laced with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. But you'll see soon enough, the truth is hidden, buried beneath layers of history and deceit. Your family, your heritage, it's been concealed for a reason. You weren't supposed to find out. But now, you have no choice. The air between them felt heavy, thick with the weight of unspoken truths. Maria wanted to scream, to tell him that this was all nonsense, that he was playing some twisted game with her. But she couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't lying, the certainty in his eyes, the unwavering confidence in his words. It all felt too real, too much like a trap closing in around her. Why me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Why now? Why are you telling me this? Alex hesitated for a moment, his eyes flickering with something she couldn't quite place. Because, Maria, you're the last piece of the puzzle, the key to unlocking everything. Her heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? He stood up and walked to the window, his back to her as he gazed out over the city. You're not just any girl. Your family is connected to something ancient, an order that has existed for centuries, a group that controls far more than just wealth or power. They control knowledge, secrets, things that could change the world. Maria's mind raced. She couldn't process what he was saying. An ancient order. Secrets that could change the world. It sounded like something out of a fantasy novel, not the life she had known. Your family has been hiding this secret for generations, Alex continued, his voice distant. And now the time has come for you to take your place in this legacy. But you're not alone, Maria. There are others, people who have been watching you, waiting for you to realize your role. People who will stop at nothing to make sure you, fulfill your destiny. Destiny? Maria laughed, though there was no humor in her voice. This is insane. I'm just a girl from a small town. I don't belong in any legacy. I don't have any destiny. Alex turned back to face her, his expression unyielding. That's where you're wrong. You do belong. You always have. She stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "No, I don't care about some legacy, some ancient order. I just want my life back." Alex's gaze softened, but there was a sadness in it, as though he knew something she didn't. "I wish you could have your life back, Maria. I wish it were that simple. But there are forces at work here that are far beyond our control. This is bigger than you, bigger than me, and you can't walk away from it." Her breath caught in her throat as she took a step back. The words "forces at work" sent a cold chill down her spine. She was in over her head, and she knew it. But even more terrifying was the realization that there was nowhere to run. "I'm not asking you to believe me yet," Alex said, his voice gentler now. "I'm not asking you to make a decision today, but I am telling you that you need to prepare. Your life will never be the same again. Whether you like it or not, you're a part of this world now." Maria's world felt like it was crumbling. Around her, everything she had known, everything she had believed about herself was being ripped away, leaving only confusion and fear in its wake. She had to get out of there. She had to leave and never look back. But the question that gnawed at her heart was, where would she go? The door to Alex's office opened, and a tall man in a sharp suit stepped inside, his presence commanding the room. Maria's heart skipped a beat as he locked eyes with her. The man's expression was neutral, but there was a coldness in his eyes that sent a shiver down her spine. "Mr. Montgomery," the man said, his voice low and respectful, "we need to talk." Alex nodded without a word, his attention briefly shifting to the man before returning to Maria. "This is Caleb," he said, his tone cool. "He's been helping me with certain matters." Caleb's gaze flickered to Maria, but he didn't speak. There was something unsettling about the way he looked at her, like he was analyzing her, trying to figure her out. "Caleb, can you give us a moment?" Alex asked, his tone polite but firm. Caleb nodded, giving Maria one last appraising look, before leaving the room, closing the door behind him. Maria stood there, trying to process everything that had just happened. The tension in the room was palpable, and for the first time she realized that there were forces at play that she couldn't even begin to understand. Alex wasn't just some rich CEO. He was part of something much larger, something dangerous, and Maria had been drawn into it whether she liked it or not. "I don't know what's going on, Alex," Maria said, her voice shaky. "I don't know why you're doing this, but I can't be a part of this world. I can't." Alex sighed, the weight of the moment heavy on him. "You don't have a choice, Maria. This is bigger than both of us, but I can help you. I can guide you." Maria shook her head. "I don't want your help. I don't want any of this." Alex's expression hardened, his eyes flashing with something darker. "You will, eventually. You'll see." The door to his office opened again, and this time Caleb returned, followed by two other men. They were dressed in dark suits, their faces unreadable. Maria's pulse quickened. What was happening? Who were these men, and why were they here? "Alex, we need to move quickly," one of the men said, his voice urgent. "The situation is escalating. We can't afford to wait any longer." Alex looked at Maria, his expression unreadable. "Maria, it's time. You're not going to like this, but I have to show you everything." Maria's heart pounded in her chest. She had no idea what he was talking about, but she knew one thing for sure. Her life was about to change forever, and there was no going back. Maria sat there, unable to breathe, unable to move. The weight of what was happening crashed over her like a tidal wave, drowning her thoughts, consuming her every sense. Everything she had known, everything she had worked for, was being ripped away from her. Alex Montgomery's world, this world, of power, secrets, and shadows, had pulled her in, and now there was no escaping it. The men standing in the room, Caleb and the others, stared at her, their expressions unreadable. They moved like shadows, their presence almost invisible, but it was impossible to ignore the tension in the air. It was suffocating. Alex stood by the window, his back to her, his arms crossed. His posture was relaxed, but there was a hardness in his shoulders, a weight that had settled into his demeanor. Maria's heart raced in her chest. The truth was slipping through her fingers, just out of reach, and she wasn't sure if she was strong enough to grab it. The silence in the room stretched on, unbearable. Finally, Alex turned to face her, his eyes dark and intense. "Maria, I know this is a lot to take in, but the time has come. You need to understand why I brought you here." "I don't understand anything," she replied, her voice trembling. "What is this? Why are you involving me in all of this?" Alex's gaze softened, but there was a steely resolve behind it. "You're part of something much bigger than you realize, Maria. This," he motioned to the room, to the people around them, "this is just the beginning. You are a part of an ancient order, one that has controlled much more than you can imagine." Her mind spun, trying to catch up with the magnitude of his words. An ancient order. She had heard him say it before, but it felt like something out of a dream, a nightmare, a story that couldn't possibly be real. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want you to fulfill your role," Alex said, walking closer to her. "Your family has been part of this for generations, and now it's your turn to take your place. You're the key to unlocking everything." Maria's pulse quickened, and a cold shiver ran down her spine. She didn't want to believe him. She didn't want any of this to be true. But the more Alex spoke, the more she realized she had no choice but to listen. "I don't belong here, Alex," she said, standing up abruptly. "I'm not part of whatever this is. I just want to go home." He stepped forward, his presence overwhelming. "You don't get it, do you? You can't go home. You never will. Not after what's happened." Maria stumbled backward, her mind reeling. "What do you mean? What's happened?" The door to the office opened again, and Caleb walked in, followed by two other men. Maria's heart skipped a beat. The urgency in their eyes sent a chill through her. The men exchanged a glance before one of them spoke. "Mr. Montgomery," the man said, "the situation is escalating. We've received word that they're moving in. We need to act now." Alex's face tightened, his jaw clenched. He turned to Maria, his expression no longer soft. "This is why I didn't want you involved, Maria. But now there's no turning back. They know who you are. They know what you hold, and they'll stop at nothing to get it." Maria's breath caught in her throat. She had no idea what he was talking about. Who were these people? What did she hold? Her head swam with confusion. "Who are they?" she demanded, her voice cracking. "Who's after me?" Alex looked at Caleb, his eyes dark with anger and frustration. "They're the ones who have been tracking Maria's family for years, the ones who've been searching for the key to the legacy. They're dangerous, Maria. They're ruthless." The men around her were silent, their eyes dark and calculating. The air was thick with tension, and Maria could feel the weight of something terrible hanging over her. It was like the world she knew was crumbling, and the pieces were being replaced with something far more terrifying. "Why are they after me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Because they know what you are," Alex said, his voice hard, "and they'll do anything to take it from you. They believe that you're the one who can unlock the final piece of the puzzle, the key to all of it." Maria's hands shook, and she had to fight to stay upright. This wasn't just about a dress. This wasn't just about an ancient legacy. This was about something far more dangerous, something that could destroy everything. "Why didn't you tell me?" she cried, her voice breaking. "Why didn't you warn me? Why bring me into this?" Alex's expression softened, though there was still a coldness in his eyes. "I tried to protect you, Maria, but I couldn't. They found you. And now they'll stop at nothing to make sure you're theirs." Maria's mind raced, trying to comprehend what he was saying. Her family, her bloodline, was connected to something much larger than she could ever have imagined. And now she was caught in the middle of a battle for something she didn't understand, something she couldn't escape. "Where do we go from here?" she asked, her voice filled with fear and uncertainty. Alex looked at her, his eyes intense. "We fight back. We protect you. But first we need to get you somewhere safe." Before she could respond, Caleb spoke again, his voice low and urgent. "They've already breached the perimeter, sir. We don't have much time." Alex cursed under his breath. "It's happening faster than I thought." He turned to Maria, his gaze piercing. "Maria, I need you to trust me. Everything that's happened, everything I've told you, it's all true. But we don't have time to explain it all. Right now, you need to come with us. They're coming for you, and we need to get you to safety." Maria's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to refuse, to run, to pretend like none of this was happening, but she knew she couldn't. There was no way out now. She was in too deep. "What do you need me to do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear that gripped her. Alex's expression softened for the briefest moment. "Stay close. Trust me. We'll get through this." He turned to Caleb, who nodded and stepped forward. "We've set up a safe house. We need to move now." Maria nodded, too terrified to speak. She was being pulled into something that felt like a nightmare, but she had no choice but to follow. As she turned to leave the office, the men flanked her, their faces hard, their movements precise. It felt like a dream, like everything was happening too fast, too suddenly. The elevator ride down to the parking garage was silent, each second, dragging on. Maria's mind raced with the overwhelming weight of everything Alex had just revealed to her. Her life was no longer hers. She was part of something bigger than herself, something ancient, something dangerous. And the people who wanted her were ruthless. They would stop at nothing to get what they wanted. As the elevator doors opened, they were met by a sleek, black SUV. Caleb gestured for Maria to get in first, and she hesitated only for a moment before. Climbing into the back seat, Alex sat beside her, and the other two men took their positions in the front. "Where are we going?" Maria asked, her voice small in the tense atmosphere. "To a place where we can hide you," Alex replied, his voice cold and determined. "And then we fight back." The SUV sped out of the garage, the city's lights flashing past them. Maria's heart raced in her chest, her thoughts a blur. This wasn't the life she had ever wanted. This wasn't the life she had imagined. But there was no turning back now. The stakes were higher than she could comprehend. And she was in the middle of a battle she didn't even understand. The safe house was unlike any place Maria had ever seen. Hidden deep within the city, tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, it appeared to be nothing more than an ordinary home from the outside. But inside, the atmosphere was suffocating, thick with an aura of secrecy and tension. The walls were lined with dark wood, the floors cold under her feet, and the only sound was the occasional creak of the house settling in the night. Maria sat in the small, dimly lit room, her fingers tightly gripping the fabric of her jeans as she tried to process everything that had happened in the past few days. She had been thrust into a world of power and danger, a world she couldn't have imagined in her wildest dreams. She was no longer just a girl from a small town. She was part of something far larger, something that reached deep into the fabric of history itself. Alex had insisted on staying close by, never leaving her side for long. She knew that he was trying to protect her, but there was a distance in his eyes now, a coldness she hadn't noticed before. The man who had once seemed like her protector, her ally, now felt like a stranger, someone whose intentions were clouded by a mystery she couldn't begin to understand. Caleb and the others had disappeared into the shadows, leaving her alone with her thoughts and the overwhelming weight of the truth. Maria's family was tied to something ancient, something far older than her comprehension, and now she was the key to unlocking it all. The door to the room opened, and Alex stepped inside. His expression was unreadable, his eyes scanning her, face for any sign of resistance, of fear, of doubt. But Maria had no strength left to resist. She had no choice but to go along with whatever came next. "I know you're scared," Alex said quietly, closing the door behind him and leaning against it. "I know this has been hard for you to understand, but you have to believe me when I say that this is the only way. There's no going back." Maria's heart pounded in her chest as she looked at him. "What are you asking me to do, Alex? What do you want from me?" He exhaled deeply, his shoulders tense. "I don't want anything from you, Maria, not in the way you think. What I want is for you to accept your place, to take control of the legacy that's been passed down to you." She shook her head, the confusion still clouding her thoughts. "I don't want any part of this legacy. I just want my life back. I want to go back to the way things were." Alex's face softened, but there was a deep sadness in his eyes. "You can't, Maria. Not anymore. The people after you, they're not just after your family's legacy. They're after you. You're the last piece of the puzzle, the one who can unlock everything." Maria stood up abruptly, her hands shaking. "Why didn't you tell me all of this sooner? Why didn't you warn me?" "I couldn't," Alex replied, his voice steady but filled with regret. "I couldn't because I knew the truth would tear you apart. But now we have no choice. They're closing in. We don't have much time." Maria felt a knot form in her stomach. The urgency in Alex's voice was undeniable. Something was about to happen, something that would change everything, and she had no idea what it was. Just then, Caleb entered the room, his expression hard. "We've got a problem," he said, his voice low. "They've found us. They're closer than we thought." Maria's blood ran cold. "Who are they? Who's after me?" Caleb's eyes flickered to Alex, and for a moment there was an unspoken understanding between them. Finally, Caleb spoke. "They're the Order of the Red Circle, a group that has been hunting your family for generations. They want what you have, what you can unlock." Maria's mind reeled. The Order of the Red Circle. She had never heard of them, but the name felt ominous. "What do they want from me?" "They want to control the power your family possesses," Alex explained, his voice grim. "Your bloodline is tied to something ancient, something powerful. And now you're the one who can unlock it. You're the one who holds the key to everything." Maria felt the world around her spin. This was too much to comprehend, to understand. She had been thrust into a world of secrets and lies, of danger and power, and now she was the one who was supposed to unlock it all. She wasn't ready for this. She didn't want this. But as the reality of her situation sank in, she knew there was no escaping it. "What happens now?" she asked. Her voice barely a whisper. Alex stepped closer to her, his eyes never leaving hers. "Now we fight back. We protect you. We make sure the Order doesn't get what they want." Maria swallowed hard. She could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her. There was no turning back now. She had to face whatever was coming. Even if she didn't understand it, even if it terrified her. "We need to move," Caleb said, his voice urgent. "They're closing in." Alex turned to her, his gaze unwavering. "Are you ready?" Maria looked at him, at the man who had brought her into this world of power and danger, the man who had been her guide, her protector. She didn't know if she could trust him anymore. She didn't know if she could trust anyone. But one thing was clear, she had no choice. "I'm ready," she said, her voice firm, despite the fear that gripped her. "I don't have a choice." Alex nodded, and Caleb led them down the narrow hallway to a hidden door at the back of the house. The walls were lined with bookshelves and antique furniture, but there was something about the door that felt out of place. It was made of heavy metal, old and worn, with a keypad next to it. Caleb punched in a code, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Beyond it was a dark tunnel, narrow and steep. Alex stepped in first, followed by Caleb, and then Maria. The air grew colder as they descended deeper into the underground passage. The walls were lined with stone, and the floor was slick with moisture. The further they went, the more the sense of danger grew. Maria could feel it in the pit of her stomach, the feeling that they were being hunted, that time was running out. At the end of the tunnel, they reached a large chamber, its walls adorned with ancient symbols and markings. In the center of the room stood a stone pedestal, and on it was an object, something that glowed with an eerie, almost otherworldly light. Maria stared at it, her heart racing. "What is that?" "That's what they want," Alex said, his voice filled with awe. "The key to everything." He stepped forward, reaching for the object, but Maria held back. "What is it? What does it do?" Alex turned to her, his expression solemn. "It's the source of the power your family has been protecting for centuries. It's what the Order wants. It's what you're meant to unlock." Maria shook her head. "I don't want this. I can't be part of this." Alex's gaze softened, but there was no mistaking the urgency in his eyes. "You don't have a choice, Maria. They're coming for it. They're coming for you." Before she could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed through the chamber. Caleb stepped back, his face pale. "They're here." Maria's heart skipped a beat as the heavy door to the chamber creaked open. Figures in dark robes stepped inside, their faces hidden beneath hoods. They moved silently, like shadows, their eyes fixed on the glowing object in the center of the room. Alex stepped forward, his posture resolute. "This ends tonight." The battle was about to begin. Maria's life, everything she had known, was about to change forever. The end.